Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, the consumer studies candidates, and good afternoon also to the parents that are listening so that they can help their learners, their children. I am Tidi Mafoyane. I will be presenting on the tips on how to write the consumer studies paper, on how to approach it. And let me start by saying to our candidates that for everything you need to have a plan. So you need to have a timetable to plan for your studies. Remember that you have 6 days left for you to prepare for consumer studies. So for the next 6 days, please have a plan and make sure that you honor that plan. Work on improving your levels. That is the reason why you need to have a plan. You know your SBA mark, you know your PET mark, so this is the time to use the exam to improve your level. And then another thing is to look at the environment. The environment is very much important. Find a go-to-study place, and that place should be a very quiet place. Those that are in camps, at least you'll be studying under supervision. But if you are at home, find that quiet place. And then remember that when you study your textbook or your study guides, and even when you revise your question papers, you cannot study the same way that you check your Facebook page. Remember that you use this, the textbook, so that you can learn something. So for you to learn, you must make sure that the information stays there. And then you need to process it until you get it. So what you need to do is to learn, then you relearn, and you learn again until you master the content. And then be focused. Put your mind on what you are trying to do or what you are trying to learn. Do not think about your friends and other things, but think about what you are learning. And then when you put in effort to understand something, you are signaling your brain that the information is worth remembering. So that is very much important, to put more effort. And if you can do that, the results will show. And then as you prepare for the coming examination, you need the following resources. You need your textbooks, you need the DBE self-study guide, and then the 2021 examination guideline. That is very much important. Those who can view my presentation, you can even see that I've written that even in red, because this presentation is largely based on the examination guideline. Even the examiners, when they set the final exam papers, they use the examination guideline. So it is important to go through the examination guideline and use that examination guideline as you read to tick off the content that you have studied. And then use also the previous question papers and make sure that you have a notebook and a pen. And then if possible, participate in study groups. And then as you prepare for this paper, to write the paper, make sure that you find time to test yourself. You cannot just study without testing yourself. Test yourself. Start by trying to remember everything you can. Jot down your memory and remember even more. Answer the question in a self-test. So in short, what I'm trying to say here is that you need to test yourself. And then on the 1st of December, when you go to the examination room, make sure that you arrive there an hour before time. And then have all the stationery that is needed. And when you are in that classroom or that exam room, be calm and remember that you need to be calm. If you find yourself panicking, just do the breath exercises. Breathe in and breathe out, breathe in and breathe out until you become calm, because it is important to become calm when you approach your question paper. And then as soon as you get the question paper, read and follow instruction. Peruse the question paper before writing. Do not start when you receive the question paper. Do not just close the question paper and only open it when it is the time to start writing. Make sure that your handwriting is very much neat. And then as you read your question paper, also read the headings and the instruction carefully. I'm repeating this because it is important that you follow the instructions. And then number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in the question paper. And then as you prepare to answer the question, you need to know that you are writing that paper, that you are doing that for yourself. Everything that you do it for yourself. You are the one that is going to benefit from by passing that paper. If you do well, that's you who's going to benefit. And then let's look at the structure of the paper. The paper is a 3-hour paper out of 200 marks, and it has 6 compulsory questions, meaning that all questions are compulsory. There's no choice. You cannot skip a question. You answer all questions. And then the questions will be based on your case studies, cartoons, scenarios and pictures, labels, recipes, menus, and other resources. So it's wise to go through those resources carefully. So this is how the paper is structured. Section A, there are 2 sections. It's section A and section B. Question 1 is short questions, and the short questions cover all the topics, and it is out of 40, and the weighting for question 1 is 20%. And the time that you need to spend for that, for question 1 is only 20 minutes. Do not spend more than 20 minutes. But at the end, when you are done, and if you still have time, you can go back and then look at the questions where you had difficulty to answer. And then section B, there are 5 questions. Question 2 is based on the topic consumer, and then it is 40 marks. It weighs 20% of the paper and spend only 40 minutes. Question 3, food and nutrition, 40 marks, 20%, and then also spend 40 minutes in that question. And then question 4 is clothing, 20 marks, 10%. It covers 10% of the paper, and spend 20 minutes on that question. Housing and interior, 20, and interior design, 20 marks, and then it covers 10%, and make sure that you spend only 20 minutes. And then the last question, question 6, is entrepreneurship. It's 40 marks, and then spend only 40 minutes in that question. And the total time there is 120, which is the 3 hours that I spoke about. And then again, another thing that you need to be aware of is that the question paper has a range of cognitive levels and different levels of difficulty. You will get questions that are based on, which are low order questions, which are remembering questions, and it will be easy questions for 60 marks. And you'll also get the middle order question based on understanding, applying, and then that will count 100 marks, meaning that understanding questions will be 40, and then application question, it will be 60. And then we'll also have the high order questions where you'll have to analyze, evaluate, or create something according to the instruction. So that will count 40 marks, which is 20% of the paper. And then question 1, 1.1, like I said, that question 1, it will be the short questions. It will be multiple choice questions. So let me just give you a few tips on multiple choice questions. Keep the numbering of the answers the same as in the question paper. Do not change the numbering, and make sure that you don't skip a number when you do your numbering, because that will affect your performance, because now you'll miss some of the answers. And then try to work out the answer without looking at the possibilities. In most cases, if you go through the possibilities, they might mislead you or confuse you. So it's better to read the question and try to remember what the answer for that question is before you go to the possibilities. And then once you've done that, read through the statement and all the options, which are the possibilities. Underline the keywords in the statement. Cross out the options that are definitely wrong. And then read through the statement again and then select the most appropriate option from the options that are remaining. And then write down your answer and move to the next question. And when you answer this question, make sure that you write only the letter and not the statement. Write the letter of the correct answer. And then go back to the questions you were not sure of at the end of the question paper, if there is time, because we don't encourage guesswork. So try not to guess, and then but later on you can go back, but never leave a question unanswered. You can only guess if you really do not know. And then you are going to get a match question, and in the previous paper there were about 2 match questions. So the tip that I can also give for the match question is that read through the entire list of statements in column B and all the descriptions in column B. Read through each statement in column A and find the best match in column B. Then you start ticking off the answers in column B in a pencil so that you know the answers that has already been chosen when you now respond. And then cross out the options that are definitely wrong in the same way that you did with the multiple choice question. And then first do the ones you are sure of, then go back to the ones that you are not sure of and choose the answer from the remaining options. And then do not guess your answers. That's what I always encourage. But if you don't have time or you really do not know, that's then that you can guess, but you don't start with the guesswork. And then another type of question in question 1 is the identification of items. So the instruction there will be select or choose the correct answer. And then or it can be statements or terms from the list given. Then there you'll be required to write only the letter. Maybe it will be A to J, or the letter, or depending on the number of answers that are required then. And then from there you'll just have to give the options, the correct answers according to the list and the list of items that are correct there. So I've given you an example there from a previous question paper where learners had to identify 4 advantages of building your own house, and then write only the letters A to H next to the question number in your answer book. But then you only write the answers that are correct. Like in this instance, the correct answers there were only B, E, G, and H. And then another one type of question is where you have to give the correct term. So you'll be given a description, and then from there you have to say what that description, the term for that description. So I've also given you there an example where learners were given statements or descriptions, and then they had to give an answer. So you just need to write the numbering correctly, and then just the correct term. Do not write anything but the correct term. And then let's now move to section B. So section B has questions that test the ability to give a detailed or a brief and a concise answer. So it is important to find the keywords and the phrase to determine what the question instructs for the response. In other words, the keywords are very much important when you read the question. And then the mark allocation also gives an indication of how much information is required for the answer. So that is very much important that you also look at the mark allocation per question. And then now let's move to question 2. Question 2, remember I said it is consumer. It's about the topic consumer, and it is 40 marks. Like those that are able to see the presentation, we can even see that this was cropped from the examination guideline. The reason being that I need you to go and use that examination guideline. So according to the examination guideline, it states there that candidates should be able to explain the financial and contractual responsibilities customers should take note of. And then again, the candidates, they need to identify and describe the different types of taxes, know all the different terms that are used in this topic, and then explain the difference between simple and compound interest. But in this case, you don't need to do any calculations. That is it is mentioned in the examination guideline. And then another thing that is expected from you is to discuss the interest rates applicable to different types of credit. And then again, to compare the different sources of electricity, evaluate the responsible use of electricity and water, know the responsibility of the municipality with regard to municipal services, and also you need to evaluate service delivery by the municipality. And then when it comes to that first part where it said you need to explain the financial and contractual aspects of the consumer, you need to take note of the following: that you need to know what is a contract, the different types of contracts that are relevant to customers, the cooling off period, and then exemption clauses, both the legal and the illegal clauses. And also you need to know the unfair business practices, and then the difference, the definition of warranty and the guarantee, and the difference between the two. And then you need also to go and study what are grey goods, and then the parallel imports. So the definition of the two and their implications for consumers. And then you need also to know the scams, the different types of scams, and why should customers be aware of the scams. And then you'll get questions also on, you might get a question on stock files. In the same, you need to know the difference between the legal stock files and the illegal stock files, and the implication of this also to the customers, the different types and the implication, and the pyramid schemes, whether know the legal and the illegal pyramid schemes. And then again on consumer, you need to study the taxes, the interest rates, and inflation. Know the different types of taxes paid by South Africans. Why do South Africans have to pay tax? You need to know that. Know whom are taxes paid to. That we all know that a tax is paid to SARS. And a short description of the following types of taxes, like your income tax. Normally we call it the pay as you earn, and the provisional tax. Know your VAT, value added tax, and the food exemption from that. And then property tax, tax not paid to SARS but to the municipality. And the excise duty, the taxes levied, and the liquor and cigarette. Levies paid on petrol and motor licenses. So these also you need to study as we prepare for the paper on the 1st of December. And then again, study the interest rates. They're applicable to different types of credit, like I've mentioned in the previous slide. So know the definition of the interest rates and what a repo rate is. Here it is even written that a repo rate is the interest rate charged by the Reserve Bank. You need to know that the difference between the simple and the compound interest test, and remember that you will not be required to do any calculations. Know also the definition of inflation and the inflation rate, the definition of inflation rate, and explain what the CPI is and how it is measured. The effect of inflation on consumers is very much important also to study that. And then again, study the sustainable consumption of electricity, sustainable consumption of water, and the municipal services. So from your study guide, there's a list on what to study concerning the sustainable consumption of electricity, like comparing the source of electricity supply, such as fossil fuels, and then again the use of gas. Those are things that you need to study. And even the sustainable consumption of water, you need to study that. And the municipal services, who's funding the municipality services, that is very much important. So refer to your study guide and study what is mentioned in the study guide as you prepare for the exam. And then that takes us now to question 3. Question 3 is said to be a question where most learners struggle in. So when you study this question, make it a point that you also go back to the examination guideline, use previous question papers, and know what is it that you need to study. The RATP that teachers used this year explains well what needs to be studied. The food-related health conditions that need to be studied for 2023. So it is important that you only study what is supposed to be studied this year, only the illnesses for 2022. So this question is also based on cartoons, tables, the graphs, food labels, the meal plans, and then menus, recipes, and candidates should also focus on eating habits to prevent or manage the existing condition when you study the nutritional and food-related health conditions. So like I've mentioned, that the recovery plan has the list of illnesses that has to be studied for 2022. So as you revise the previous paper, make sure that, like last year's paper, do not study the illnesses for 2021. Focus on the 2022. That is very much important. The only thing that you can do is maybe from the question that is phrased, remove the illness and then put in the illness that is for 2022. I'll give an example later on. And then from the examination guideline, this is what is stated, that you need to describe, to be able to describe food-related health conditions. You need to describe what is high blood cholesterol, what is high blood pressure, and the other 2 diseases. And then name the causes of health-related conditions. So it's either you'll be given a scenario where you have to identify and explain the cause after reading the scenario. And then again, you need to explain how each condition could be prevented. That is very much important. Like I said, that as you read if you use the 2021 question paper, if the disease that is there is not relevant, and the question asked for learners to explain how the condition could be prevented. So the only thing that you can do, instead of if maybe the question was on diabetes, for an example, you just remove the diabetes and replace that with high blood cholesterol, so that at least you practice the conditions, how the conditions can be prevented, and then explain how each condition could be managed. Remember, it is the cause, it is the prevention, and the management of the condition. That is very much important. And then from there, suggests the dietary changes to manage the diseases. What should the customers change in what they are eating, or people who are suffering from these conditions, what should they change so that they can manage the disease? And then another thing, you need to compare the different health conditions. So in this case, it means that you might be requested to compare coronary heart disease with the high blood cholesterol, or the high blood cholesterol with the high blood pressure. And the high blood pressure is also known as the hypertension. The reason why I'm mentioning this, it is because some of the learners, they think that high blood pressure and hypertension are two different conditions. It is one condition. So it is very much important that if you are used maybe in class, or the teacher only refer to this condition as the high blood pressure, if in the examination you come across a question saying hypertension, remember that it is the same thing. And the fourth one will be anemia. So I've included the information here from the self-study guide. The reason for that is that I would like you to use the self-study guide for revision. Please do that. This is how the self-study guide is structured. I just selected only on one condition, which is the high cholesterol. So when you look at that picture then, or that information there, it starts with the causes of high cholesterol, but before this, there's a definition of the cholesterol. So I did not select that. I only selected the causes, and then from there, from the causes, now you learn the foods to prevent, foods that you can eat in order to prevent the cholesterol. So there's preventative measures there, and then again on the last part is prevention and management. So this will also help you to prepare. And even if the manner in which these statements or this information is written, it is so much brief. So that is why I'm saying for revision, I advise that you use the self-study guides. And then, okay, I also put in them from the self-study guide, the causes of the hypertension, like they are very much short. There is just written causes of hypertension, not exercising, smoking, alcohol. So it is like obesity can also cause hypertension, and stress can also cause hypertension. And remember that hypertension is still the high blood pressure. And when you study this, I know that at home we have maybe family members who are also suffering from these conditions. It is also it will be helpful if you can communicate with them, interview them, also know how do they feel, and then what are they using to control these conditions, and what are they advised when they go to clinics on how to manage this condition. And even in this slide, there's dietary prevention and management. So that will also help you. Even the pictures that you will see, they will help you to remember when you are asked to state, to explain the condition, or even what causes the condition. And then I also took an example from the very self-study guide. There's a question there. Those who are able to see my presentation, you can see that there's a question 6, which says, answer the following question on high blood pressure. And in the very same page, question 7 says, give 5 nutritional guidelines to manage hypertension. Can you see that it is in one page, but in the first question, the condition is referred to as high blood pressure, and in question 7, the same condition is referred to as the hypertension. So that is the reason why I took this question, so that I make you aware and help those learners who only prefer to use one name of this condition. So if you look at question 7, it says give 5 nutritional guidelines to manage hypertension. Remember that there are general guidelines, but there are also nutritional guidelines. So nutritional guidelines, they refer to what you eat. So it is very much important that we read the question carefully, because here, if you can give just general guidelines, it means that you will miss or you will lose marks or you'll give incorrect responses. So it is very much important that as you read the question, you underline first the concept for the question and the action verb. In this case, the action verb is give. So in other words, you just need to list. And then what are you listing? 5 nutritional guidelines to manage which condition? The hypertension. So that is very much important. And again, you will get, you might get a scenario. I've also given out a question with a scenario then. There's a scenario then which reads as Saul is a 36-year-old bachelor who very seldomly cooks and regularly eats a lot of junk food. He always sprinkles extra salt on his food. But just saying extra salt, it also makes you to think about that condition there, hypertension. So that is very much important also, that as you read the scenario that is given, from the scenario, try to find out which condition is that scenario addressing. And then question 3 also, you need to study the foodborne diseases. So here, you must study the following content: transmission possibilities in the food environment, and then incubation period of the following diseases. The 3 diseases, hepatitis A, and then E. coli infection, and gastroenteritis. And then I've also given you information from the DBE self-study guide. That is why I will always remind you to refer to the DBE self-study guide, or to use it for revision, and also to test your knowledge, because after each content there are questions that you can use to test your knowledge. So that is another one, which a table, or which the first table explains the foodborne disease, and then there are also pictures there, because I know that most of our learners are visual learners, so they will always remember what they see. That is why they like Facebook and other social media, because there's a lot of images. So the self-study guide, we have tried to bring images to help our visual learners. So it will be the explanation, and then the transmission, and then the next column, it will be the incubation period. So from the self-study guide, you will get this information, and it is a good summary for you to use for revision. And then also under question 3, study the food additives. It is very much important. And also here, use the self-study guide, because you need to explain what are food additives, and then you need to give reasons for the use of that, and also to explain its effect on food, and to discuss its safety, and also to discuss issues of possible allergy reactions due to these food additives and the types thereof. So you need to study that. So the self-study guide will give you a more summary and simplified information on that. Food labeling is also important, and then due to time, I will not read everything, but make sure that you study food labeling and the food-related consumer issues. It is very much important, like food labeling. What do we use food labeling for? Use food labeling as a source of nutritional and other information, and then you need to know and identify and interpret the basic information on food labels. That is very much important, meaning that you might get information from a certain food package, and then with the food labeling there, and then from there you'll be required to identify misleading nutrients, nutrient content in that food labeling. And then you need to state the condition for nutrient content claims, for energy, fat, saturated fat. So it is very much important to go through that. And food-related consumer issues, it is very much important that you are able to describe the genetically genetically modified food. That is very much important, and also to give example of that, and to identify and explain that, and evaluate the impact of genetically modified food. That is very much important. And organically grown food and irradiated food on the natural and economic environment. That is very much important. And also to describe food security. That is very much important. The reason why I'm going through this information from the examination guideline, it is because examiners also use the examination guideline when they set papers. That is the reason why I'll keep on repeating that, so that we take this examination guideline very much serious. And then the fourth question is on clothing with 20 marks. There you need to describe the concept fashion, and then explain the influence that determine contemporary fashion, and then identify, explain and describe fashion cycles. That is very much important. And remember that here you're going to get pictures. So when you look at the pictures, so in the meantime, as you prepare, expose yourself to the number of pictures, so that you'll be able to identify those the fashion in the pictures. And then also you must be able to explain and describe fashion rivals. That is very much important, and also explain why fashion changes. So in other words, it is also important to know the current changes. That is why the next part says you need to describe contemporary fashion trends for the young youth. So in other words, maybe the fashion that is there in your textbook is old, and then the examiners might come up with something that is current. So it is important also to know the current, hence the fashion trends. And then explain the role of appearance in the workplace. That is very much important. And also you need to be able to suggest guidelines for choosing and purchasing clothes and accessories. And then also there's a long list there, which I think after this presentation, you need to go and refer to the examination guideline on the wardrobe plan. That is very much important. So you need to go and study on how to plan a wardrobe, either for the world of work, or for the different seasons and the different occasions. That is very much important. And then also how to apply clothing theory to select clothing for the workplace, and how to plan a basic wardrobe. That is why I said you need to go back and refer to that. So in this case, again, like I have mentioned already, pictures, photographs, and sometimes cartoons, you will get them in the question paper for you to answer this question. And remember that what you learned in grade 11, the application of color, the design elements and principles. You need to also go back and refer to this content. And then another question, the fifth one, is housing and interior. There you'll be expected to discuss and compare the 3 different housing options, and you need to know the advantages and disadvantages of those housing options. And also you need to be able to explain and discuss the financial responsibilities for the different options, and also to discuss and explain the contractual responsibilities. and also to explain and discuss the factors to consider when shopping for household appliances. And then in the next slide, I will show you the appliances that you need to study. And also you need to compare and evaluate different appliances and make the choice that will be suitable for a scenario that will be given in the question paper. And then these are the appliances that you need to study: the washing machine, the refrigerator, a freezer, a stove, and a microwave. So make sure that when you see a picture, do not confuse a stove with a microwave. And then from the self-study guide, I also took this information. This is from the self-study guide, and this is from the grade 11. So the self-study guide has grade 10 and grade 11 content, which are required for you when you study a specific content, or to prepare you to master a specific content in grade 11. So it means that if you can use a self-study guide, you don't need to go and borrow a grade 10 or grade 11 textbook or go to your old notes, but this will assist you because the information is there in the self-study guide. So the comparison, sorry, battery, the phone is not charging. Okay, the comparison of the housing acquisition options. Here, it will be like whether you buy a house or you build a house for yourself or you rent it. So there's that comparison. And then this will also assist you, like it is summarized information, and preparing this, using this to prepare for your examination will be of great help. And then question 6, which is also another challenging question for most learners. In this question, you'll be expected to identify a potential profitable business opportunity, and then also to explain the factors to consider in the choice of that business opportunity, and then also to identify, explain, or discuss factors influencing the efficient production of that product, and also to develop a marketing plan, and to analyze or evaluate the suitable profitability of a business, and make suggestions on how to improve the sustainable profitability of that business, and also to determine the costing for startup needs, production costs, and selling price and profit. So what I did also, I took this marketing mix from the self-study guide. It is also information from a previous grade. So this will also assist you a lot. So in short, what I'm trying to say to you is that I'm not saying that the textbook, it is not important. But what I'm trying to say is that during this time of revision, it is better to use the self-study guide to recap, revise, and to test your knowledge. And by saying that, let me ask this question. Do you think that is it too late to improve your levels? So my answer to that candidate is that that is a big no. You still have a chance. You can change your mindset, you can change your attitude, and you can do your best. Study like you are in a race or a competition. For those that are listening from Muteo and the Sutu radio station, all I can say to you is that ntho ya ho qetela le yona e a kena ka sakeng. In simple terms, I'm saying that even if you can do your best at the last hour, you can make it. You will succeed. So you can make excuse, or you can make it to happen. I thank you. That brings me to the end of the presentation, and I wish you all the best as you prepare for the consumer studies paper in the next 6 days. Thank you. Okay. I do have a competition. I do have a competition here. So those that will be able to answer this question, they're going to get a prize. Unfortunately, for now, I don't know the prize. I was not given the prize. But for those that would, a t-shirt, okay, they say the price is a t-shirt and a cap. So I also wish I could enter the competition and win that cap, because it is very much hot lately. So here's the question. Define the concept repo rate. That is the question. And there was a reason why I explained that in the presentation. So just answer that so that you can get that cap. Thank you.